Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. This is week 8. This is now the halfway point, or a little past it. Well, week 7.5 is, we're halfway done, basically. And we are cruising right along. We've started the video lesson 1 project with you just choosing what you like to teach, and we're going to get more into that later today. But first, and we're going to talk about giving meaningful feedback and giving feedback to students, why it's important and how to do it. So first, what is it? Feedback to students can take on many forms, includes, suggestions on writing, on essays, comments on the final submissions, grades on exams are a kind of feedback, comments on oral presentations, just speaking, telling the students things. Those are all feedback, telling the students how they're doing and how they can do better. So to help students make the most productive use of their feedback, we need to also think about the timing or sequence of the assignment, of the test, of the project, and how it fits into the course schedule, into the semester. Also, we need to watch out for the tone of the feedback and the guidance as well, so that students can benefit more. Students are very sensitive to things, and sometimes even if you give feedback, they might ignore it, and a lot of times they do ignore it, depending on how you give it. So one important thing is that providing meaningful feedback helps students move beyond just focusing on the grades. Grades are value judgments of students' performance on a given task, but meaningful feedback provides students personalized, specific information about the performance and learning. Feedback isn't a justification for the grade, but rather is positive reinforcement, constructive criticism focused on helping students understand how to improve or, expand their thinking. And of course, though, grades are much easier to quantify, to count, and it's much easier and to show other people, to show third-party people or, other people your grades, as in a number, a symbol that shows how well you did at something. There is a very famous example in America of one university called Evergreen State University. It's in Washington State, and it's a public school. They're the hippie school. They don't have grades, as in there's no A, B, C, D, F. Because what they do, the professors have to write evaluations, and they're about 1,000 words in length on average. I've met people who went to that university, and it's not for everyone. It's a very different kind of thing. Also, they don't have majors. You're not an English education major. You kind of create your own major. So it's a lot of very individualized education, which some people respond to very well. But without that structure, a lot of other people can fail in and make messes of themselves. But we tend to think that grades are our evaluation and evaluation are grades, but those aren't the same. And Evergreen State University, they are an example of that. Where they gave evaluation, and students can fail out of the school if they aren't doing well. So it's just like any other school in a lot of ways, but they want to provide very personal services. So it's another way of providing evaluation and feedback. It helps us to make our feedback as specific as possible, avoiding the generic of nice work or unclear. Provide specific, targetable feedback. What was good about the assignment? What did they do well? What did they not do well? What was not clear? If you say unclear, what was unclear? What was the problem? When I provided you feedback on your introduction videos, you made videos, and if you did it, you got the full point. So you just made a video. But here's the thing: I wrote feedback about giving suggestions on how to improve, on what to watch out for in the future, how to make things better. So the feedback and the grade were two separate things in this case. Meaningful feedback is also very formative in nature, in that it's designed to help students understand the learning progress and focus on improvement. For example, professor might require students to submit a first draft of an assignment. Feedback on that first draft will help students expand their thinking, clarify their argument, better incorporate source material, or just make things better. The first draft they'll get feedback on, and later their final draft is what's graded. We're going to have this in detail this week because with our big project. Even when feedback is provided on a summative assignment, such as a midterm essay or final project, the feedback should focus on lessons the student can carry with them to their next assignment or class. By providing specific feedback on areas of organization, presentation, or content knowledge at which the students excel or should further develop, we can help students improve their learning over the course of their college experience. Now, this is written for university students, but it's very true for elementary school students as well, providing meaningful feedback to help them get better. That's what the feedback's there for. This is quite helpful and important, and it's something that I have trouble with. Feedback needs to be timely. For feedback to be effective, the assignment still needs to be fresh in the students' minds. And when there is time for them or opportunity for them to improve, to get better, to understand things better for the next chapter, for the next assignment. If there's not opportunity for this, or there's not time for the students to make adjustments, then the feedback isn't as helpful to them. So we need to be on top of that. So a good idea that we give is 3 weeks. We need to provide within 3 weeks of the assignment, we need to give the feedback to the students. Effective feedback is legible and uses a constructive tone. If we handwrite feedback, then it needs to be readable and understandable. We don't need to use code because that's difficult to understand, or it could be esoteric. It's also important that feedback is given in an approachable tone, that there'll be times for you to strongly and sternly correct students' behavior or what they're doing. But on an assignment, unless something really bad happened, like cheating in elementary school, cheating's not the worst thing in the world, but because they're kids, but we need to have constructive tones and try not to be too mean about things. I give very direct feedback, and that can be sometimes have a misconstrued tone. This is an interesting thing. Consider feedback as a way to start a conversation with students. So a lot of times we think of feedback as a one-way conversation. The instructor, the teacher, the professor is giving corrections to the student. But it's also helpful that the students think about what they've done, as in evaluate themselves, reflect on their own efforts and what they did well, what they didn't do well, and what they think about their own work. And that is an important part of growing, is being able to evaluate yourself honestly, see where you did well, and see where your areas of weakness are. Something that I've sometimes had trouble with in the past is that feedback is not the same as rewriting the student's essay or providing extensive edits. Feedback is not editing the entire essay. It takes a lot of time, and that's not our job. Editors have that job. And when we make lots of corrections, we are sending the message to the students that they are inherently wrong, inherently incorrect. And in my experience, this does not help. It doesn't promote learning. And often, it's if providing feedback on more in-depth assignments, then they need to know what they did well, and also why are the changes better? Why are the corrections correct other than just you're the teacher? So it helps if you can, if you're examining or writing, for example, be able to underline and focus on some of their problems and explain why they're problems and how to fix them. Make sure that also, even when we give compliments, we compliment their efforts or their what they've done. It's really important that our corrective feedback doesn't conflict with your complimentary feedback. Those are mutually exclusive. If they're doing something wrong, they can't also do it right. So we need to watch out for that as well. Then also, we need to tailor our feedback to the assignment. There's different ways to give feedback. So think about what the assignment was and what the most important parts of the assignment are on which to provide feedback on. For example, this is EP1, this is pronunciation and a teaching methodology class. So it's important that when you're teaching, if, for example, this video lesson that you're going to be making, it is important that you use correct English because it is an English lesson. But other aspects are not as important. If you're giving, for example, in this video lesson, your art ability isn't as important because it's not an art assignment. It's a English assignment, English teaching assignment. So that's something that will guide the feedback. I will be focused on the English teaching and not the art or music as much, because that's not the point of the project. And also, it helps if we use our feedback to inform future lessons. So we always notice patterns. If we find that half of the students or more than half the students have a similar problem, that shows that something's going wrong in the lessons that we're giving. There's a problem in the teaching. And so you need to be aware of that and to reevaluate your lessons to fix this, to avoid these kinds of problems in the future. Then also, as we move along, we're able to provide examples of successful and unsuccessful assignments of projects. Of course, we need to, take away names and all those things, but this is very true, is that we're able to use past students as examples to future students. So using the feedback that you give, you are able to notice patterns in history, and you're able to incorporate that into your future lessons and make them better. Something that's quite important is that feedback takes time, and you need to provide guidelines to yourself on how you provide feedback. How much feedback will you give? If, for example, in the let's say the phrasing video that we did with the movie monologue, I asked you to do that, and and I can give feedback to you about that. But if I give one student 300 words of feedback and I give another student 2 words of feedback, that's not helpful and that's not fair either. So one takes a lot of time, or if I spend 1 hour writing feedback on one student, but then I only have 10 minutes to write 20 other students' feedbacks, you need to divide up your time so every student gets a fair chance and a fair amount of time. But you also make sure that you're working within your own life structure, your own life schedule, because you're going to have lives and families and things, and you will need to schedule appropriately. So it might be something where you can only give a maximum number of suggestions, like say 3, things like that. This is something that if we have multiple classes doing the same kind of assignment, try to stagger your assignments to give time. So instead of, let's say, for example, for the video lesson. Right now, I only have 2 EP1 classes, but say if I had 5, then I would need to schedule them so they don't all have the same due date. I would try to rotate the schedule around so that each week or each half week, one class would finish, and I would get a chance to grade some of those videos instead of grading all, say, 200 videos all over one weekend. So try to be aware and schedule accordingly to make sure that you're not, to avoid a crunch on your time. All right, that's the end of the main lecture. Let's now talk about a video project. Now, you chose your topic, and now we need to plan things out. Your next step is to write a lesson plan. Plot out what you want, what you're teaching, because as you noticed, you have your functional language, your grammar forms, and your content language or target language, and that is the vocabulary. And since your video is 3 to 5 minutes long, you may not have time to teach everything that's in the book. So you need to choose what you're going to teach. And then you're going to have to think about how you're going to introduce it, how you're going to teach the material, how you're going to, what activity you can try to do, and how you're going to conclude your lesson. So remember, you're making a video. This is not a live lesson, so you have lots of time to plan things out, what you want to do. You have the opportunities to make edits and montages and sound effects. And remember, who is your audience? They're all elementary school students. And be aware of what grade of elementary school students you are going to be teaching. So this week, you're going to write a first draft of your lesson plan and submit it on eClass. And I'll give you feedback on it and try to help you develop your lesson. It needs to be submitted on eClass by Friday, April 23rd. There are blank templates on eClass already, so please go find those. Name your files. Don't just have it be the generic title, because you are not the only student that I'm teaching and that is doing this. So make sure, put your name and your student number in the file name. That will help out things a lot. Now, something about this assignment. For a lesson plan, you need to have it detailed enough that I know what your lesson is by reading it. If I can't understand what the lesson is, that's a problem. And your lesson plan should be detailed enough that I can visualize, I can see the video in my head when I read your lesson plan. So don't just put one word answers. Try to explain a little bit about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And I think this will help you out a lot. And you're going to be planning out your lesson, because this should be planned. This isn't an impromptu in-class lesson. It's something that you have time to plan out, time to prepare for. And so hopefully they'll all be very, very good. Something else, so we have until this Friday, the 23rd. So please make sure you take care of that. And then I'll be able to provide feedback on your lesson plans and go from there. Now, this goes back to the feedback lecture. If you write a lesson plan, you'll get the points. My feedback to you, that's for you to make a very good lesson plan for your final project, because they're having you're going to submit your video and your final lesson plan. And if you ignore my feedback and you don't improve upon it, then that's going to affect your grade, because the lesson plan is a part of your final grade. Your final draft lesson plan is part of your video lesson project grade. Also, make sure that, it seems obvious, but you know, students get confused, that your lesson plan matches your lesson. That's how it should be. All right, have an excellent weekend. We'll stay in touch, and we'll see each other again on Monday.